Well, thank you for joining me for another IT Wire video of top Australian and international executives. We have the two-in-one today with James Nunn-Price. He is Deloitte's National Lead of Cyber. He was doing this job in the UK and in fact advising the UK government on security for the London Olympics, and now he's here in Australia. So James, thank you and welcome.
Hi Alex, and it's my second week in the country, so I'm pleased to be here.
Now please tell us what you were doing in the UK with the Cyber Intelligence Centre. You were the National Lead of Cyber there. What did that entail, and what will you be doing here in Australia?
So Deloitte has a global offering around cyber security, and as part of that, working with clients, I've seen that increasingly attacks are more pervasive, more industrial in scale. It's not script kiddies in their bedrooms, it's organised, it's funded. And actually 92% of attacks are from outside, but in the last year we've seen internal attacks double to fill the rest of that, from 7% the year before to 14% this year. So there's a real problem out there, and that's what I was doing there.
And I guess the UK would have been, especially being one of the financial hubs of the world, I mean, there must have been a tremendous amount of cyber activity, you know, for all of Europe and for the rest of the world.
Yeah, not just at a corporate scale either, but actually in individuals, so personal information, consumables, wearables, cloud, all of these IT issues. Cyber is at the heart of that.
Now, clearly, it's a global issue. Australia's not immune. Australia has this reputation for being early adopters. But you know, that sort of answers my next question. But why are you building the Cyber Intelligence Centre in Australia now? Clearly, you've had a lot of success overseas, so they've brought you here to do that. But what are the other reasons around that?
So Australia, you know, has always been at the forefront, I think, of adoption of tech. You know, you've got wearables on, Alex. I can see you there. You know, a lot of the IT tools that are out there have been deployed in Australia already, like antivirus, firewalls, intrusion network prevention systems.
Yeah. And we're having a crypto ransomware plague as we speak. I've got friends that have been attacked, and you know, they're trying to figure out whether they pay the ransom or not.
Yeah. So what happens in those cases is the threats are the same globally. So the fact that you're adopting faster means that actually your defences need to keep tackling that. And having worked across EMEA with our global leaders in the US, Australia is the natural next choice for building up in a global investment.
Now, is this going to be like in one giant building, or are you spreading it across Deloitte's various offices around Australia? Where is it going to be constructed?
So firstly, it needs to be resilient. So we can't have a single building in one place, because if there's a flood, lightning, you name it,
single point of failure.
Absolutely. So all of our tools are replicated globally in the cloud, in a secure environments. But we are going to be putting people in all the key states in Australia, and that will also enable us to deal with local legislation and clients.
So how much is Deloitte investing in its global cyber operation? Sounds like it's going to be a lot.
So we're investing tens of millions in the globally. A number of million in Australia, and I should point out, you may not know this, Alex, that we have nearly 18,000 cyber professionals globally, 4,000 of which in Asia, and Australia is the gateway to Asia, as you know.
I mean, we see a lot of you know, Russian cybercrime or Eastern European, and I mean, one of the Asian connections is going to be North Korea with its attack on Sony. But how much other cyber attacks are coming out of Asia now compared to Eastern Europe and Russia?
Interesting question, Alex. I think that what I see is organised crime has no nation state, and actually over half of the attacks, 55% of the attacks, are from organised crime. And when you think about that, these are people without borders. They could be in any country. Yes, state actors are a big worry for government, and actually, you know, we're helping governments address that risk. But for businesses, consumers, the majority of attacks are people trying to make a quick buck, you know, make some money on the side, fraud, steal your identity, intellectual property, and all those sorts of things.
We have a lot of bikies in Australia, and you know, thugs and gangs and things. But is Australia known, you know, from your international point of view, as having much of a homegrown cyber criminal industry?
Good question. I'm looking forward to finding that out from our threat intelligence researchers. I'd be surprised if there isn't any. You know, I mean, let's face it. You know,
it's borderless, like you said. So you know,
any community, you're going to have a bit of everything, and you've got some very clever people out there who like to play around, and actually, you know, with the economy and so on, they might be turned to making a quick buck rather than following the straight and narrow.
From the business point of view, I mean, how big is the problem in Australia? Obviously, we're talking about a lot of CIOs, and but you know, also on that same vein, you know, we have mandatory data retention, breach notification laws in the US And I know that in the EU, there's draft legislation for critical infrastructure organisations to report when they've had data breaches. But what's the situation in Australia, and what's the work going to be doing around that?
So there's a couple of interesting points on that, Alex. Firstly, we don't know the detail of the Australian incidents because they're not reported. So if you're not looking, how do you know?
Yeah.
The second thing is that when I talk to CIOs at multinationals, they already have breach notification. They've got to comply with the US laws where they have to publish their breaches publicly. UK laws around privacy where you have to notify the regulator, and then if you don't fix your shop, you get publicly fined. And across the European Union, they're bringing in breach notification laws. So actually, if you operate internationally, you already have those. What I hear from my
clients...
just
a formality if they introduce it in Australia, that's been doing it.
Yeah, I think when I talk to my clients, what they don't want is something different. They already have to do lots of reporting.
Yeah.
And you've probably seen Deloitte's
Another
stuff.
burden would be just be crazy.
You've seen Deloitte's research on reducing bureaucracy and red tape. Companies already have these cyber restrictions in other countries, so why not adopt something very similar and make it the same? And that's what I would suggest when I'm advising clients.
And presumably, you'd be talking to government here in Australia too, and making various recommendations.
Yeah, government's absolutely key. I think if you look at national cyber strategies in the US and Europe, they're on their third or fourth iterations now. It's such a fast-changing area, and Australia, I think they're just about to refresh theirs, and there's some work happening now. But 5 years ago, is very different to today. You didn't have the iPads and the iPhones, and you can't have something that sits on a shelf. It's got to be implemented rapidly.
Absolutely. So, given everything we've said, how would you describe exactly what the Cyber Intelligence Centre will do?
So, talking to clients, heads of security, CIOs, chief executives, there's a number of issues they've got. There's information overload. There's a shortage of talent. They don't know what's going on, and they have restricted budgets. So the Cyber Intelligence Centre basically fills that need. We take all of the feeds from your existing IT providers and security providers, and we use our skills we're best at business advice. So we look at that raw data, and we interpret that and we turn it into actionable intelligence. So you, the CIO, the CEO, can actually take an action that is meaningful and directed. And basically, by clubbing together globally all of our cyber intelligence centres, we have a unique perspective on what is going on out in cyberspace. Now,
you mentioned before about 5 years ago, we didn't have the iPads we have today. We just had the first iPad 5 years ago, but obviously before that, the smartphones as we know them didn't exist. But let's look into the future. How do you see the crystal ball, showing us what will be happening in 5 or 10 years' time? Will we have defeated cyber terrorism and all these threats, or is it just an ongoing cat and mouse game, or have you got some different view?
So I think a big change I would see is that today, when you get your social media account or your new smartphone, the security features are there, but they're not turned on. I think if you're looking forward to a few years, I'd like to see, and I think will happen, by default, when you sign up for Facebook, Twitter, the two-factor code will be turned on, as an example. The stuff that is there, why don't you just turn it on? And the same like wearables, and you think there's some great health data, great, I can see how I'm doing, whether I should go to the doctor or not, but I think out of the box today, it's up to the user to configure the security. I think what will happen in the future, they will come secure by default. And what I'd like to see, and what Deloitte is helping clients with new product launches, because don't forget, cyber's about growth too, so it enables you to build the digital economy safely, and give you comfort, peace of mind, is actually put it part of the core offering and not kind of an add-on.
Yeah, that's very true. So, given all of that, what would your final messages be to IT Wire viewers and readers, but also to your current and potential customers?
So I think there's two types of people out there. There are people who know they've been hacked, and there are people who don't know they've been hacked.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's how you respond, and you can't respond unless you know what's going on. So improve detection and monitoring, and be ready to respond.
James, thank you very much.
Thanks.